Happy Friday, everyone. So today we are going to be learning from Chapter 3, Lesson 4. All right? So hopefully you have all your notes set up. Focus note style, Chapter 3, Lesson 4, multiply decimals by decimals. So our learning target for today is to be able to multiply decimals by decimals. In Lesson 3, we were learning how to multiply decimals by whole numbers. Okay, and this is just a little example from Lesson 3 that I have on here. So in Lesson 3, again, we were multiplying a decimal by a whole number. And I talked a lot about keeping the decimal in the same spot, but what I really wanted you all to understand is that the reason we're keeping the decimal in the same spot, so the same place, so my decimal here is right here, and then I'm dropping the decimal down, it's in the same place, is because this number right here has two decimal places, so I'm going to make sure that my product is also going to have two decimal places. When I say two decimal places, I'm starting from the right, and I'm going to make jumps to the left, and I'm going to count how many jumps I make. So if I start here, I have 1, 2 jumps, and then I get to the decimal. So that's why I'm saying I have two decimal places. So if I'm starting, again, on my product, starting on the right, and going towards the left, so I have 1, 2 jumps again. Okay, so my product also has two decimal places. All right, so we are going to start taking notes on Lesson 4. And yes, you should write this down. Okay, so this is what your table of contents should look like. All right, and here is page 21. This is what your focus note page should look like, okay? All right. So first, we are going to practice multiplying decimals. So let's put multiply decimals by decimals. So that's our main focus for today and our learning target. So what I want us to try to multiply first is 0.067 times 1.4. So it looks a little intimidating how it is, but we're going to change how it looks, and I'm going to show you one strategy that has really helped me, and I know a lot of other students, multiplying decimals. Okay, so here's my decimal here, so the 0.067 and then 1.4. Okay, and what's different from Lesson 3 to Lesson 4? In Lesson 4, we are going to determine where the decimal is a little differently. So we're going to see how many decimal places this number has, and then we're going to look at how many decimal places this number has. After we do that, we're going to add up those decimal places. So let's start with that first. So how many decimal places does this number have? And let's count the jumps. So if I start over here, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 jumps until I get to my decimal. So it looks like there are 3 decimal places. And I'm just going to put DP for short, so decimal place. Okay? And then 1.4, I'm going to start on my right, count my jumps. Looks like there's only 1 decimal place. So I'm just going to put 1 DP, so 1 decimal place. Okay, so then when I'm trying to figure out how many decimal places my product will have, I'm going to add these up. So 3 plus 1 equals 4. So my product should have 4 decimal places, okay? This will be the product. All right, so we will multiply this out, and I'll show you how to do this and placing your decimal place where it needs to go, but then I'm going to show you one other strategy to use that's a little easier when multiplying decimals. Okay, so let's multiply this out real quick. So 4 times 7, I'm just going to multiply it like normal, okay? So imagine there is no decimal here, and I'm just multiplying 67 times 14. So 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 6 is 24, plus the 2 is 26. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And then I'm going to add a placeholder. So I'm going to add that 0 there, because now I'm going to multiply 1 through the number. So 1 times 7 is going to be 7. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 0 is just 0. Okay? Then I add these. Okay, and I need to make sure that I drop that 0 as well. Okay? You might remember from lesson 3 I talked about annexing zeros. Okay, so this 0, if you didn't have it here, you would have needed to add it. Okay, and so my product will have 4 decimal places. So I'm going to count the jumps again. I'm going to see where I should put my decimal. So if I start on this side, it's going to have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to put my decimal place right there. Okay. But I'm going to show you a different strategy now for multiplying decimals a little easier. All right, so in our next example, we have 45, or 0.45, sorry, times 0.053. Okay, so this is what I have to multiply, but instead of starting to multiply my decimals, remember in this problem I said, imagine you're not multiplying decimals, but you're multiplying 67 times 14. So in this problem, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend I'm not multiplying decimals. So what I'm going to multiply is 45 times 53. Okay? So let's start multiplying. So 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 4, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 1 is 13. 5 times 5, and before I start multiplying 5 times 5, I'm going to add a 0 here, and I'm adding that 0 because this 5 actually represents 50 and not just 5. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus the 2 is 22. Okay, so I'm going to add that real quick. Okay, so this is the answer I got. But now to put it in a decimal place, so let's say I multiply my decimals out. Put that 0 there. So times. So 0.45 has how many decimal places? So if I count 1, 2, has 2 decimal places. 0.053 has 3 decimal places. Okay, so my answer is going to have 5 decimal places. And I figured that out because I did 2 plus 3, that equals 5. So 5 decimal places. Okay. So since my answer is going to have 5 decimal places, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to make sure that I place my decimal after the 5th decimal place. So let's see. Let's start counting here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's where I'm going to place my decimal. And it looks like I have an empty spot here. And this empty spot is from this 0. So if you see, I have a 0 right here in one of the factors, and I didn't place it here. So I'm going to place it here. Once I place that 0 here, I should, if I multiplied things out, I would have had a 0 somewhere here. Okay? So that's why the lesson 3 talked about annexing zeros, because sometimes you need to fill in a 0 where needed. All right? So let's do one more example. And on your practice pages, I want you guys to practice and imagining that there was no decimal and just multiply everything out like it was a whole number, like 45 times 53. That way you don't get confused. And then you can go back and add the decimal. And it's going to be E. So letter E, that's the one we're going to do. Okay. It looks like this. All right. And we are done taking notes, but these are the problems that you guys are going to need to do in the Got It problems. So I want you guys to be working on this, and then if you need a reference, I'm going to work through one of them with you so you know how to do it, and I think this might be one of the harder ones. Okay, so problem E is asking us to multiply 0.26 times 0.205. Okay, so that's what I have. 0.26 times 0.205. So again, I'm going to forget that I'm actually multiplying decimals and that I'm multiplying whole numbers. So I'm going to change how this looks a little bit. So I'm going to pretend it's 205, not 0.205. I'm going to pretend it's 26, not 0.26. I'm going to multiply, so 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 0 is 0 plus a 3. 6 times 2 is 12. I'm going to add my placeholder there for the 2 because it's not 2, it's 20. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 0 is 0 plus the 1. And then 2 times 2 is going to be 4. Okay, so now I'm going to add. Okay, so that's my answer. Now I'm going to look back over here and I'm going to see. So let me grab another colored marker. Okay, so let's check how many decimal places this number has. It doesn't work. All right, so this number has 2 decimal places because I'm starting from the right side. I'm making my jumps 1, 2, so that's 2. And then this number has 3 decimal places, okay? So if I add those up, I should have 5 decimal places for my answer, my product, okay? So then I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to count my jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so then I need to annex, so I need to add a 0. All right, so my answer is 0.05330. Okay, if you need any more help, please let me know. In class on Monday, we will be working on lesson 4 practice. But try the Got It problems on pages 202 and 203, and have a good weekend.